So with that, we come to the next topic, which is IoT challenges and issues. So basically, IoT systems have multiple challenges. So in the last, I think in the last lecture, that IoT systems have the main challenge of IoT security and privacy. In that case, we face cyber attacks, data thefts, and data modification in our IoT systems, right? So currently, it is a challenge to even the industries and the academia how to maintain the security in IoT systems. So these are the kind of challenges currently in the IoT systems, right? So security means like the security of the data, how the data can be stolen or modified by an intermediate person who's accessing the IoT system, right? So if we have some devices which are connected to a certain like to the internet through a local access point, and then once the data is stored in a cloud, so the person another person who access this cloud might be able to access your data if your data has not been encrypted, for example, and that the username password are not encrypted. If the username passwords are not encrypted, then the cloud access person will be able to see your data and will be able to read your username password. Using those data, they will be able to access your device from their location, and they will be able to observe your like network, your environment, and they will be able to make decisions about your area, I mean, what you are doing, and or monitor your behavior or something like that. So this is a challenge with the IoT networks, and therefore we need to focus on security in the upcoming era for the IoT. So there are uh, like engineers who are working on cyber security, for example, who try to come up with secure operating systems or softwares for IoT systems, IoT networks, and they will be using these secure systems to send the data from the devices to the cloud and from the cloud to the device and so on. So authentication of the data will be done and encryption of the data will be done. So security will be considered. However, security is not practically possible in situations where we have like low level computation at the sensor nodes, right? When the sensor cannot do a lot of computation, when the sensor node is not able to do a lot of like complex computations or a lot of security related tasks, securing the data, encryption of the data, and communication related to security of the data. If the sensor node is not able to do all that, then the IoT system security cannot be easily maintained. It will increase the cost of the system. So maintaining the balance between security and the reliability of the data is a challenge. Then privacy of the data. So the privacy of the data means like how a person can access the data, right? So if like each sensor node is having a certain username and password, then the each of the sensor or sensor node can access the system using that username and password, right? However, if you don't have such a system, then we might not be able to control the access. Anybody can access your system. So therefore, the privacy of the system, like who can enter the system and who cannot enter the system, should be implemented properly in an IoT network. We need to mention who can access system and who cannot access the system, right? So the network must be configured to like have a list of all the subscribers to the IoT network, right? Anybody who's not having their IP addresses in this list should be blocked in accessing the system, right? They should have the correct authorization beforehand to access the system. So such systems or some certain algorithm must be implemented in the IoT networks to the cloud servers, for example, to prevent the unauthorized people accessing your system. So that is what we call as privacy, like preventing unauthorized persons to access our system, our network. And then interoperability is a challenge. So interoperability means that once different devices, different types of devices are accessing the system, we might not be able to like connect all the devices to the access point. Uh, so in situations where we are connecting different types of appliances, and these appliances might have different communication technologies. Some might use Wi-Fi, one might use Bluetooth, one might send a lot of data, another sensor might not send a lot of data. So these are kind of challenges that the local server has to face when collecting the data from the different devices. The local server or the local router has to be configured to collect the data from the different devices, such that the data is continuously collected, and the data is not lost. So the reliability of the data must be maintained when you're having multiple different appliances connected to this edge router, for example. In that case, we need to configure the edge router beforehand to address the data collection process. And then legality and the rights. So the data that we collect from the IoT networks must be secured, and the security of the data, if it is breached, the security of the data is breached, some punishment must be given to the people who have stolen the data, right? So laws and policies regarding that must be defined. So the legality and rights refer to those kind of policies. So companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Cisco, the people who have already built infrastructures related to IoT, they have policies regarding these, right? So once we are building IoT systems, also we need to build policies that will directly say what is going to happen if data is breached and data is stolen, what is going to happen if it is not following the correct order, what is going to happen. Likewise, I mean, the standards that should be followed must be specified in the policies. After that, also the economy and development of IoT networks is a challenge. So what I mean by economy and development is that the economy of maintaining an IoT system is considerably high in situations where we have massive IoT networks. Right. So once we have maybe 2, 3 sensors, it is easy to deploy that network. However, such kind of networks with small amount of sensors might not be able to do the massive impact on the on our service, right? On our goal. We don't have a massive impact from our IoT network once we have only a small number of sensors, right? Only once we have large number of sensors, we'll be able to collect a lot of data. Using the data, we can make some useful information. However, once we have massive amounts of data, massive costs are incurred because of the massive amount of sensor nodes. So once we are implementing this IoT system, we need to consider about the costs that are related to sensors, microcontrollers, and the communication technologies that we are using, and so on. Right. So if we can go for like small size deployment methods and make these sensor nodes very small and autonomous and cheap, then we can deploy these in a massive scale. Otherwise, we need to balance out the cost and the performance of the system. And then we also need technical skilled people to operate these IoT systems, right? So IoT systems, once you are operating that, that person should be able to have good understanding about embedded systems, right? Basically, all the enabling technologies I mentioned today, those technology specialists must be available to run these or operate these networks. So we need technical skilled people to operate these networks. So in the upcoming future, we might need all these skills that I mentioned in the enabling technologies to deploy IoT systems. So once you are searching in the internet also, once you are searching for a job, these days we have requirements of having the knowledge of machine learning, cloud computing, networking, collecting data from embedded systems, programming embedded systems, programming knowledge. So these things are required to deploy an IoT system. So basically, you need to have those, I think, those technologies if you want to move into deployment of IoT systems. So that is basically all for this presentation. So do you have questions so far regarding today's lecture? Apart from that, I also have an assignment that I have uploaded in the LMS. So if you have, I don't know whether you have seen it, that assignment is also for you as well. So you need to complete that assignment. The deadline for that assignment is Monday evening. So you might need to start doing the assignment from today onwards. Right. So do you have any questions related to the LMS assignments? If you have any questions, you can let me know. So in that quiz, I have named it actually, it is not a quiz actually. You can do it multiple times and submit the answers. Right. So it is not a quiz, therefore. So you can submit it multiple times. Uh, you can um, attempt the same assignment multiple times, and then you can uh, do the assignment, right? So I will go to the assignment now. We will have a look at the questions that I have mentioned there. If you have any questions, you can let me know. So also I will be uh, taking these marks for these assignments and average them to give the marks for the mid exam. So you need to consider this seriously and do these assignments, right? So the whatever the assignments that I have uploaded as quizzes, you need to do those, and you need to try to complete all, because I will be considering the average of all the marks from all those quizzes as the exam mark for the mid exam. Right. So one question I have asked in this is like this question, right? I hope you can see. So I have asked REST and WebSocket are commonly used APIs in IoT, right? So what is the difference between those APIs in terms of memory consumption and complexity, right? So REST API and WebSocket API. So I have mentioned about the REST protocol and the WebSocket protocol, right? But the REST protocol basically is about using request response model for the communication, right? So they will be using a request and response method to request and get a response about a certain like a resource, right? So we are accessing a certain resource and we are getting some response regarding that resource. So in that case, we are having a very short communication with the server because once the request response communication has been completed, the communication is terminated. If another resource or some kind of a request is required, some kind of resource is required by the server or the client, then the server or the client must make a new request. And then only the server or the client on the other side will respond back to you. So the REST protocol is basically based on that request response protocol. They are doing the communication using request response messages, and then once that response is received, the communication is terminated. However, in the WebSocket, we do the request for the communication to start. Apart from that, once the communication is started, the communication will not end until one of the devices, the client or the server, which are using this communication, decide to terminate that communication, right? Therefore, the WebSocket communication, right, is using like a long duration for the communication. So as you think, what is the API which is using more memory and more complexity, as you think?
WebSocket.
Yeah, so WebSocket protocol uses more memory and more complexity, right? So memory wise, they have to collect all the data for all the communication that is happening during that long duration. And also they need to maintain full duplex communication uh, between that server and the client, right? So during that full duplex communication, the complexity involved is higher than one directional communication that is happening in the REST API, right? So based on all those factors, I hope that you can explain the differences between the REST and the WebSocket API, right, in terms of the memory consumption and the complexity. And then we have another question. Okay, so actually I don't know whether I can do this because I have already attempted this. Um, mm, okay. What are the four main request methods used in COAP and explain their functions? So can you mention to me what are the four main request methods used in COAP?
Con message, run message, and rest and acknowledgement.
Yeah, those are the message types, right? Message types are different than the request methods. So request methods means like what are the functions used to request a certain resource. Yeah, so get, post, put, and delete, right? Request methods are different type of functions, right? That are specifically those used for accessing a certain resource in the server, for example, from the server, for example, right? So request, that word means that you are trying to request a certain resource. So what is the method of requesting that resource? How you can request that resource? So you can use these get, put, post, delete commands to access the resource, right? These are standard commands that you can use, right? So those are the standard request methods. Yeah, the message types are those non, and this reset and ACK. The message types they can use. And that means based on this message type, the communication will happen. That means once you are sending a con message, there would be confirmation that will be received by the person who's transmitting the data. If you are sending a non-message, then there will not be any confirmation uh, uh, received by the transmitter. And reset message, then you are resetting the communication. That this is regarding the communication that will be happening from the transmitter to the server. But how the transmitter and server, the client and server, how they both will react, will be determined by this message type that we are defining once we are starting the communication, right? So both will react based on this message type. They will either send a confirmation, they will either not send a confirmation based on the message type, right? So likewise, those are the message types that we can send in our COAP communication, right? So request methods are different thing. So you can refer more about that if you have doubts, right? So then, okay, so can you also provide, I think we have gone through this in our last lecture as well. So what are the example protocols for the different communication models that we are using in IoT? So basic communication models are of 4 types that we can, we can say as a standard. So request response model is used. So publish subscribe model is used. Push pull model is used. Exclusive pair model is used. And so you can find the example protocols that are using these models, and you can provide the example protocols, right? So I think that is already, I think we discussed. So what is the main difference between physical design and logical design of IoT, right? So can you tell me what is the difference? So you can decide it, I think, by yourself. So I think because the time is running out, I will try to stop talking about this assignment and its questions, right? So you can write answers to these assignments as much as you want. I mean, many times as you want. Submit the whatever. I mean, you can submit multiple times. I will take your last submission as your most correct submission, right? So with that, I will decide the marks finally, right? So you need to, I think, submit the assignment on time, and then you'll be able to get the marks, right? So then now we are actually, I will just introduce to you like what I'm planning to do in the next class. So right, so in the next class I will be focusing on doing content related to uh, network function, I mean, virtualizations, right? And also, I mean, another section is also there. So we are having 2 sections that will be covered in the next class, which are machine-to-machine communications and network virtualizations, right? So we will talk about that in the next class. So machine-to-machine communications and network virtualization, right? So if you have any questions, you can ask now regarding today's class or anything else that you want to know, like about IoT, these lectures. Uh, so
Madam,
as
do we
yes,
have, it means, do we have assignment of quizzes in each week?
why? I mean, is it difficult
Not,
for you?
no, madam. Sometimes in upcoming weeks, madam, there are, it means, assigned works for us. I am working, and there is another guy who's
Yes, yes, I
uh,
understand. Yes,
participates class.
yeah.
So in the upcoming weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
there is another mid exam also scheduled
Uh-huh.
after that.
Yeah, totally
So
fine. Then I will postpone any kind of assignments to June. Is it okay with you? June
okay,
is okay. Is it okay with you? Because like currently, I'm actually doing whatever I'm doing in interactive classes as quizzes, and I'm sharing with you because I'm asked to, actually we are asked to do some question and answer sessions. That is why I have made that into an assignment. So apart from that, I mean, I understand your issue, and I will not give quizzes for this month, right?
it's only for this upcoming week, which means that
Upcoming next
so
week.
yes,
Okay, after that week, then I will give another quiz. It's okay, right?
No, madam.
So
We submitted
yes.
a quiz answer in this
Yeah.
9th. That's why I asked, madam.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand. It's totally fine. I'm just telling I can manage, like I can manage the